Okay, with that, the next thing on our agenda is a public hearing for Clayton Creel appeal. We'll state for the record that we need anyone that is speaking on this to please identify yourselves and speak loudly for the record since it is being zoomed out also. So representation from Creel.
Madam Chair, Cody Schultz with Engineering Associates. I want to thank you guys for your time today to look at this information for the Creel family. I want to make sure, because I don't know what packet you guys got. Did you guys receive our letter on October 14th?
Yes.
In a packet? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a little bit of history on this. The Creel family came into Engineering Associates and wanted to break their 5.95 acre lot into two lots, one being 3.95 and the other one being 2.0 acres. They wanted to do a family exemption because it's two brothers wanting to do two lots, but due to the state statutes, they've only owned the property for 5 years. So they had to own it for 10 to do a family exemption. So we met in front of the planning and zoning group and found out that since that this lot is in a major subdivision, the Cottonwood Creek Estates was formed in 1979 and it was planning for 92 lots. Currently, there's 20 lots in the subdivision. But since it was already in a major subdivision due to state statute, this becomes a major subdivision. So the reason we're here before you is we went in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 21st, and they denied this permit application. And I would like to go through each of the reasons why they denied it and why we think that that we're asking for you guys to appeal that denial. So the first reason was for the resolution is the lack of public services, particularly water, to serve the subdivision. In that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there was a lot of questions about Northwest Rural Water and if they could serve that area or if they were going to have a project in the near future to serve that area. Because per the requirements is that if there is a public system there that can serve it, that new subdivisions have to hook up to it. So we did reach out to Northwest Rural Water. They cannot serve it due to the pressure in that area. We asked if they have a project coming up in the near future that would be able to serve it, and they said not at this time. They are focusing a lot of their efforts over in the Powell area instead of up north of Cody. So in our research, we realized that out there is 10 lots that do not have Northwest Rural Water out there that are ready lots out in that Cottonwood Creek Estates. So then we asked them if any of those folks came in to get water, would they be allowed to get water? And they said they'd have to look at it, but probably only the ones below the road, which is 3 of the 10. So there is already going to be another 7 lots out there that can't get water. We reached out to DEQ on this because since it's a major DEQ, sometimes requires a Chapter 23 review of it. James Bruff at DEQ didn't really want to answer the question on this subject because he thinks a major subdivision is something that has more than 5 lots and bigger than or smaller than 2 acres. So he's looking at a lot of lots. So he didn't really answer the question. There's emails back and forth between planning and zoning and them, but he didn't really answer the question. And the last we got out of him was that he'd come up and look at the Northwest Rural Water system to see what they could do in that area, but we haven't got any other answers back from him. So when we looked at that, we know that the question was coming up that, well, most of the time, if you can't do a public water system, then you could do a well. Well, we've already had results of wells out there and it was very poor quality. So we knew that even drilling another well or getting a well sample would show that it has poor quality of water out there. So what we asked that we could do with this 2-lot major subdivision is do a cistern on the second one. And there was a lot of discussion on cisterns and if they should be allowed or not be allowed. And there is cisterns in the county. You guys all know that. On planning and zoning's application for small wastewater projects, the first thing down on the drinking water source is cisterns or a private well or community well or a municipal source. So we went through all those and knew that the first or the bottom 3 won't work. So that's why we requested if there could be a cistern. So that is kind of addressing that first concern about the lack of public services, particularly water. The other public services that came up in that meeting were natural gas and power. And since that meeting, we have got letters from both natural gas, Black Hills Energy and Rocky Mountain Power, and they do have utilities along Oak Drive that this subdivision would hook into. So that's our response to reason 1 of why, this subdivision can't move forward. Reason 2 was the lack of a shared roadway maintenance agreement and the condition of the road. Oak Drive is very rough out there. Driven a lot of roads in the county, and that was one of the roughest roads in the county. After 52 Oak Drive, it becomes private. So up until then, through the first subdivision, it's county maintained, but after that, it's private. In your packet, you would see that we did get information from Public Works saying that it should be up to county standards, but it's not, and it hasn't been since it was put in 79. They knew that just because of one more lot that they weren't recommending that my client build that road up to county standards. They would have recommended approval of the subdivision the way we had presented it. But no one going through this, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that got denied, we had the Creel family go out and reach out to all the neighbors that are on that road. And you saw in the packet where we got responses from a majority of the neighbors that said that they'd be willing to form a private maintenance road agreement with the group as long as they knew what the costs were, because we don't know what the costs were. We didn't go down that far, but there is definitely a few that won't be part of it. And that was definitely one of the big points in that planning and zoning meeting. There was a sticking point. A gentleman, Mr. Parks, came in and definitely discussed it. And I think I see he's on here, so I'm sure we'll hear from him on it. But I know he was very concerned about the road on that. So the Creel family is trying to reach out to try to help improve that road. We know that they're not trying to intend to build that up to county standards because yes, the cost of that, could reach $500,000 to $1 million to improve that road. So, but they are trying to work with them to try to improve that road. And knowing that if they do get a second lot in their subdivision, it will create a little bit of traffic. So, so that was reason number 2. Reason number 3 was that the likelihood that the lot size standard didn't meet the requirements of the 3-to-1 ratio, 3 long to 1 wide. If you guys looked at the lot, how we had it laid out, it's kind of a not rectangle shape. It's like a kind of an L shape. And yes, we went back and looked at it. Since it was just a sketch plan review, we went back and looked at it and we did miss it that we needed a little more frontage. We needed about 25 feet more frontage to make that 3-to-1 ratio, which we've now fixed on the sketch plan to show that that usually we have a chance between sketch plan and preliminary plat to fix any of those minor things. But for some reason during this Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, it got denied. And then there's no other avenue to have a discussion on this besides meeting in front of you folks today, because the next meeting would be in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission again with the preliminary plat where we would have opportunity to do these things, but we didn't get that opportunity. So reason number 3, it was the lot standards, they were correct. It didn't meet the 3-to-1, but it does now with the way we presented it. Number 4, the wording in the resolution says the potential for setting a poor precedent on future subdivisions. And why it didn't really elaborate on that. And I think there's people in here for Planning and Zoning Commission that could talk about it. I think my understanding while I was in that meeting was that they were concerned about cisterns, that if you allow this subdivision to move forward, we're setting precedents that any subdivision can move forward with cisterns if they can't get any other water. Well, cisterns are allowed in the county. And I still think it's on a case-by-case basis of where the quality of well water is compared to what Northwest water or other water systems are there. So we don't feel like it's setting precedents of allowing the subdivision to go in just because it needs one cistern. And there is land in that subdivision already that are going to need cisterns anyway. Those other 7 lots that I talked about are going to need cisterns anyway. So there is cisterns in the area, and there's going to be more if that ever gets developed. So that is what I like to bring in front of the board here to take in consideration of requesting a appeal from this denial, and then I will let the clients. Thank you.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
Madam Chair, I am Michael Creel.
First, we just wanted to say thank you guys for taking your time to meet with us, and we just kind of wanted to explain our situation. So this is my brother-in-law, Michael, obviously, and he just got out of the Army. He was in for 5 years, and he just wants to live next to us. He's only got my husband, his brother, and myself, and our daughter Skylar now. And we just want to have a little area where my daughter can grow up next to their aunt and uncle, which she is very close with already, and you know, just enjoy life together and be able to have a little walkway for our daughter to run across and go see their aunt and uncle, and just be close to family. That's really our main goal, is just to have family near us.
Yeah, I got back from the Army, and what better place to raise a family, you know, and bring my wife and kids out to. So came back home, and we all know what the housing market did. So the most viable option would be to help them out, and in turn they help us out. Not trying to, you know, do anything big. It's a nice, modest single family home, cistern. I know the biggest concern is probably the roadway coming in. We would love to be a solution to the issue. We've lived on bad roads our whole life. We know road maintenance, and I would also like to note, I don't think it was mentioned, there are also Airbnbs past the lot that we are trying to subdivide there. So there is already more traffic on that road too.
Can you speak up just a little bit? They're
Oh,
having trouble hearing you.
yeah,
That's okay. There's a
sorry.
mic there.
I've
No,
got a super quiet voice. So it doesn't help.
that's okay.
Yeah, so we went around, Michael and I went and talked to the neighbors, and we talked to them about kind of what the plan would be for the road. And obviously, as noted in the packet, most of them were for maintaining the road. And a lot of them were very willing to help us. And even some of them were like, hey, you know, we would like to help, but we also don't have a lot of money. So we want to just, you know, get what we can to make it more safe. And a lot of the other neighbors have, in fact, worked on the road in past, like filling in the potholes and so forth. And we just want to continue improving the road and making sure it is better, because it's not the best road in the world. But so a lot of the neighbors are for it, and we've just tried to get out and reach out to all of them and just make sure that they know that this is what's going on. We're not trying to, you know, build 5 houses. We just want to have our family next to us. So yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Kimberly Brandon Wintermelt, Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do you want to move the mic a little closer, Kim? Thank you. Thanks.
As you know, the Planning and Zoning Commission does not take lightly the denial of an application. We did so with the basis of upholding the current standards and regulations. As per resolution, we recommended denial of the Creel Major Subdivision Permit application with the following 4 topics. Domestic water requirement. As per regulations, as Cody stated, where a major subdivision is within 400 feet of an existing water main connection or connected to a water treatment plant, or water main extension is planned within 2 years from the date of application, the operator agrees to serve the subdivision. The developer shall install distribution lines contiguous to each lot. At the time of the hearing, the applicant had generally explored their options with Northwest Rural Water and found the district was unable to serve the additional lots due to insufficient pressures to sustain an additional development. It is my opinion that if they were unable to get the service tap from Northwest, they should have been required to obtain a variance from the Board of County Commissioners. In addition, Mr. Schott stated that Mr. Bruff did not want to respond to DEQ and did not consider this a major subdivision. I believe this comment was in regards to a small wastewater review and not the water supply source or the quality. The information that we received in our staff packet included an email dated September 12th, 2022, where Mr. Bruff gave the proposed subdivision an adverse recommendation with regards to domestic water. The basis for his recommendation was that wells are not proposed and Northwest Rural Water is not available to serve this additional lot. In the Creel subdivision, proposed lot 2 would potentially be hauling domestic water and storing it in a cistern. Mr. Bruff believes this issue to be the most challenging one for the proposed lot. Under these conditions, he does not believe that DEQ would support the new lot. On page 64 of our current standards, it states that a written letter of no adverse recommendations from the DEQ shall be presented as part of the preliminary plat presentation. The second item was the lack of the shared road maintenance. And while this one lot may not drastically impact the roads that are already in bad condition, according to the applicant's representative, there is a potential for those other undeveloped lots and possibly others that follow suit in this re-subdivision process, if allowed. This could possibly result in additional lots causing detriment to these roads. While I do applaud Mr. Creel's attempt to contact neighbors, he only received 6 signatures. With 6 out of, I'm not sure how many other lots are out there. It's just not enough motivation or backing to possibly get this maintenance agreement pushed through or endorsed throughout the subdivision. The third topic was the lot design standards. And at the time of the hearing, the lot design did not conform to county standards. However, this issue has been resolved and an updated sketch plan has been provided by the county or by the engineering associates. And fourth, the potential for setting a precedence. Mr. Schott stated in his letter that precedence was in reference to cisterns. My comments were in reference to a number of issues with the re-subdivision of a lot within a major subdivision. Number one, not holding the re-subdivided property to the same standards as the original. This tract of land was subdivided with a pledge from the developer, can't talk this morning, that would be constructed as stated in the applicant's affidavit, that the water system and road system described in the documents filed with the Planning and Zoning Commission will be constructed as so described. No lot shall be sold in any subdivision until domestic water has been developed and supplied to the lot or lots proposed to be sold in accordance with the means outlined in the applicant's affidavit. Even though the covenants were vacated on this property, the applicant's affidavit remains. It does not delineate the property owner from needing basic infrastructure to uphold health, safety, and welfare. The original covenants required a water supply system. The current lot owners have joined Northwest Rural Water as their water supply system. I believe the original intent of this subdivided area was to provide treated water to all lot owners. As the applicant has stated themselves, the water quality in this area is extremely poor and would necessitate the use of cisterns if not for Northwest Rural Water. If the Board of County Commissioners allows this application to essentially be re-subdivided, how many other property owners will see this as an open door to place cisterns in major subdivisions throughout the county without a variance? This issue also falls back on traffic regulations on publicly dedicated subdivision roads. At what point and to whose expense does the maintenance, upkeep, and the bringing of roads up to county standards fall on? We just had a subdivision up on the South Fork that became quite controversial as to whose responsibility it was to bring roads up to county standards when yet another subdivision is proposed. In conclusion, if the subdivision was being applied for in an area with an existing subdivision that had the infrastructure in place and supported the additional development, it most likely would have been recommended for approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, with the questions about suitability and what is already considered bad conditions in the area gave us pause to consider this application for approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission is charged at looking at the future and how developments will shape our community, and allowing an area to continue in a decline does have consequences. I can tell you as a realtor, I know the struggles that they're feeling right now. You know, we have a lack of inventory, we have high prices, And people are going to start looking at re-subdividing their property. And so I think that we need to take this very seriously and what precedents it sets going forward. And so I sincerely appreciate your time today. And I am here for any questions you guys may have.
No, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, quick question from what you were saying. With the original subdivision having to have a central water system. So actually the remaining lots couldn't be sold.
Not according to their affidavit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even though everything that's been sold so far was probably done in violation of the original subdivision.
You know, and that brings us to, you know, where we're going with our land use plan and regulations and what do we do with these subdivisions that either the original developer kind of set them up to fail because they didn't put a good, strong HOA in place or maintenance agreements in place. And how do we get some teeth in the game to help these people out? Because we don't want to step on their private property rights. So, I don't know what the answer is.
One more quick question. Yeah, I'm gonna word this. You know, I can understand your concern about establishing a precedent into the future if we just say, okay, we're gonna let you put a cistern in when you should be on a central water system. But if they applied for a variance and the variance was granted, then that really doesn't open up a can of worms because variances are granted on a case by case basis.
yes,
Okay.
but this came to us without a variance.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so I don't feel that it was in our best interest to pass it, not having a variance.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this as part of the public hearing?
This is Jimmy Parks.
Yes, sir, Jimmy, go ahead.
Yes. So I am the neighbor, I guess, north of Krill. And I have a couple of things I want to address with you guys, the engineering associate said. One, currently almost all the lots up there except one 40-acre parcel have water taps on there. None of those have been subdivided as of yet. In addition to that, Oak Drive, from where it comes off of 2ABC or 2BC, is a private road all the way out from the very beginning, not just the subdivision on Oak Drive, all the way through to where we're at is all a private road. And the road maintenance issue, I mean, we can talk about that for a second. The road maintenance issue has been an issue for years. I also find it interesting that Krill supposedly went around to all the neighbors, but he never came and talked to us. So I'm a little surprised when they said that today, because we would very much be interested in doing something with the road. We always have been. In fact, probably myself and my grandfather put the most money into that road just in this last year. But as you know, road maintenance is just a document. There's no way to really enforce that and convince everybody to stay on with that. I mean, without it becoming a legal issue sometimes. And I don't want to see that. It's very interesting to me that the idea behind a subdivision would be that you're going to tap the resources. And I know they already intend to only tap the electrical and they plan to put in a propane tank. And then of course the cistern. And I think if you do that, then what's going to happen is the guy across the road that owns 9 acres there, they're going to figure out a way to get to subdivide it, get a variance, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to have this halfway subdivision out there of all these houses that have propane tanks and cisterns. You have that 40-acre parcel. It's actually below the hill. So I don't know what could happen with that. But I think us subdividing this into 2-acre parcels is a bad idea. I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should be able to do it. And there is a road maintenance issue. But at the same time, Creel's already got his brother living in his field. So they're desperate to make this happen. And I think this is a horribly bad idea. And I think it's going to become an issue of other people out there wanting to do the same thing. And however you want to look at it, case by case, you will have a situation where you've allowed it once. So there's really no reason not to allow it again. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you. Mr. Schatz?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I have a map of that subdivision out there, and we went and did an inventory of the lots, and there's 20 lots out there, and everything circled in red does not have a meter pit. So everything on the west side does, but on the east side does not. And they're all owned by Bill Metz, so they do not have water pits out there. And yeah, the Krill family did not reach out to Mr. Parks on a roadway maintenance agreement because of the last meeting. They knew that there was concerns there, and knew that he already had an Airbnb thing going on. So they did not reach out to him, but they will after this to have a discussion on it. So, and then the other one I want to follow up on, the letter from DEQ. DEQ never provided P&Z a letter saying adverse effect. It was just in an email conversations of talking back and forth of, would you consider this an adverse effect? And James Bruff said, yes, I would, but that was before he knew that it was going to go further than what it did. It was just conversations in an email. So trying to get him to answer it would be, we'd have to go through the chapter 23. And so we were trying to avoid that at the time, but we'd be willing to go through a variance in front of you guys to change for a system. Yep.
I do have a question on that rule, and I'm not sure who can answer that, but and I know, Kim, you had a copy of that regulation. My understanding when I was working with Northwest Rural Water was if a subdivision approached us and we were unable to serve it, that met the wording of that regulation where it says if the water system is unable to serve, then the developer can go for other options. So I'm not sure what we're referring to with a variance that would have to go to a cistern if NRWD says they can't serve it because of pressure, which I certainly understand. And then cisterns are allowed within the county. We do know that. So I don't know what variance, at least on the water thing, we're looking for. What would be the reasoning for needing a variance if it's clear that the provider cannot serve it and their only other option is a cistern?
Madam Chair, at the time of the hearing.
Sorry, yes, please.
Madam Chair, at the time of the hearing, we were not sure about whether they could provide it or not.
Okay.
And so they went back to Northwest and got substantiated evidence that no, they could not.
Okay.
So at that time, I did ask, I even read the statute at that time and asked why we didn't have a variance. So that is why.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we only made it to sketch plan. We didn't even make it to preliminary plat where this information could be shared during preliminary plat. We were only at sketch plan review.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir. You'd identify yourself, please.
Madam Chair, Nick Hummel with Engineering Associates. I do want to clarify that a little bit. The information that was provided in our packet for sketch plan was a response dated August 11th from NRWD stating that the area does not currently have sufficient pressure to sustain the additional development. So at that time, that's when we knew that NRWD could not provide those services. So,
Okay, thank you. I'll ask one more time for any other public comment.
Madam Chair, move to close public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Pleasure of the board. We have a couple options. We can approve, we can deny, we can continue. we have another public hearing in a minute or two.
Madam Chair, I would, at this point in time, recommend that we continue and bring a decision later. Seeing as how we're 1 minute away from another public hearing.
A motion?
That's a motion.
What was the motion, Lee?
We're gonna render a decision later. We're 1 minute away from another public hearing.
Geez, yeah, I got, and I'll second that.
Okay.
The only thing I'd like to see, I'm more concerned about the road than I am about the water. I'd like to see you reach out to your neighbors and see if you can come up with some idea what it's gonna cost to bring it up to a basically a usable standard. And see how many of your neighbors are willing to participate. That's what I'd like to see.
Can either.
Sorry, I missed the last 20 seconds of your conversation, but if you were talking about continuing,
Yes.
you would have to reopen the hearing. Because you closed it.
Okay.
But we're Madam Chair, we were not talking about continuing the public hearing. We were talking about
Decision.
our decision.
Continuance on
Yeah,
the
we've already
decision.
moved.
Make sure
Nope.
continuing, so-
Nope, we
That's
didn't
Sorry,
continue.
20 seconds delay.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor to continue to make a decision? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We will review this and get back to you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we do have another public hearing scheduled. This public hearing is the amended plat of Spring Valley subdivision. There they are. Good morning, Mr. Donovan.
Good
Jenny,
morning.
representing Planning and Zoning Office. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the partial vacation and amended plat of the Spring Valley Lot 33 subdivision. The applicant are the Martins. This property is in the planning area Cody local. Zoning district is the current lot in the subdivision is in RR2. The property that part of this lot will be merged with is in GR20. So it's across two different zoning districts. Should this be approved. We received the application from the Martins on October 4th of this year. We received a revised copy of the amended plat on November 10th. You see that in figure 1. The requested action is the approval of this amended plat against Spring Valley Lot 33. That will, should it be approved, it will vacate the eastern portion of Lot 33 and merge the remaining portion of Lot 33 with 13.74 acres of an adjoining unplatted parcel. That will result in a 26.81 acre amended lot that we will designate we plan to designate as Lot 133 of the amended plat of Spring Valley. And should this be approved, the vacated portion of Lot 33 will be merged with the adjoining unplatted parcel. And this proposal, I know you probably read this, this exchange is identical parts. And our understanding is proposed lot 133, should it be approved, will be for residential use. This Spring Valley subdivision, it was approved in 1976. There's been, at the time, it was a 39 lot subdivision. There's been some further division since then. Ownership of this lot is the Martins. Ownership of the unplatted parcel to the north is owned by Harris LLC. And you can see in figure 2, the location of these properties. So, and Madam Chair, you can see the light blue solid line is the existing lot. Sort of that dotted solid blue line and gray line is what lot 133 will become. It's just at the north end of Quarter Horse Lane. It's just off of Road 2AB. It's on the north side of Cody. Site characteristics, this is primarily undeveloped ag land. Topography is rolling. There is a drainage. You can see that in figure 2. There's a drainage kind of running from the northwest to southeast. In terms of neighboring land uses, Of course, since this is a subdivision, there are subdivision lots essentially south of this undeveloped property in other places. As I mentioned, the current lot 33 is in the RR2 zoning district. The property that is outside of this, the unplatted parcel, is in GR20. The lot size as proposed, this 133, is consistent with the RR2 zoning district, and it's also consistent with the GR20 zoning district. We have on page 5 of our staff report, we talk about what's required for a partial vacation. This is obviously that of an existing plat, adjusting the boundary lines between a platted lot, unplatted parcel. Our regs say an amended plat is required, says the amended plat is approved by the board without a public hearing. Should there be no potential for other lot owners to be compromised, we determined that a public hearing was necessary, and with an amended plat towards the bottom, under the amended plat process, it has the regs or the rules for what an amended plat should entail. Again, public hearing, but it does need to be, I guess the point I'm trying to make is an amended plat does need to be approved by the county commissioners. Notice of public hearing that was in the Cody Enterprise as required on November 1st and November 8th. And then on November 1st, the notice was sent to neighboring property owners. We contacted a list of agencies. Park County Treasurer said property taxes are paid. Wyoming Department of Wyoming DEQ responded, gave us a list of potential permitting contacts. Game and Fish responded, they have no wildlife comments. Public Works responded, they have no comments or concerns. Heart Mountain Irrigation said they do not have any issues that need to be addressed. Park County Weed and Pest, Mary conducted initial inspection, and she determined that a long-term noxious weed management plan will not be required, wants them to follow best management practices. These lands are not in any overlay district. We've not received any public comments. Plat Review Committee, they met on October 13th. There were some changes and corrections. We did receive the amended plat, the revised one, on November 10th, and that's what you saw. So the rest of page 7, it talks about the amended plat process. We did receive the fee. Again, we talked about a public hearing being required. We talk here about what the amended plat title is, and we also talk about signature lines. And Madam Chair, there was, I thought I had it highlighted. What is that? I thought I highlighted it. Oh, yes. Thank you, Jenny. So, Madam Chair, obviously, as you know, on a plat, there's a block for the certificate of owners. So we just found out a few days ago that one of the property owners for the Harris LLC has passed away. So at this point, we are not entirely certain who will need to sign this, but we will have that confirmed again, should this be approved. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention. And Madam Chair, if you're okay, I'd like to read our recommended conditions.
Okay.
So again, should this be approved, and we do recommend approval of this. One would be the applicant shall provide all easements as requested by public applicable utilities and special districts, irrigation districts, or public agencies providing services. The width of any utility easement shall be sufficient to allow adequate maintenance of the system. No case shall any utility easement be less than 20 feet in width. Easements must be identified on the final plat. Number 2, the applicant shall obtain the names of the current members of the LTLJ Harris LLC who are authorized to sign the plat, any subsequent deed of conveyance on behalf of the LLC from the attorney who represents the LLC, and place the appropriate lines and acknowledgements for each signer prior to printing the Mylar. Prior to Board of County Commissioner Chair signing and recording. The applicant shall provide a deed granting the vacated portion of lot 33 to LT Harrison LLC, specifically merging and combining the lands into that LLC adjacent tract of record to be filed subsequent to and at the time of the amended plat filing with the Park County Clerk and Recorder. And the applicant shall provide a deed whereby LTLJ Harrison LLC grants the 13.74 acre unplatted land to the applicant to be combined with and reconfigured into lot 133 of the amended plat of Spring Valley, lot 33, for filing subsequent to and at the time of the amended plat filing with the county clerk and recorder. And the applicant shall otherwise comply with the standards in the Park County regulations and minimum subdivision requirements as set forth in Wyoming statute 185306. Madam Chair, we're happy to answer questions. Should you have any?
Any questions for staff at this time? Hearing none, this is a public hearing, so we would ask for any public comment on the proposal. If you do choose to comment, please state your name for the record and please come up and speak into the mic. Is there any public comment?
Sure, real quick.
Mhm.
Nick Hummel again with Engineering Associates. In case there's some confusion in the room on, when we do these projects, they get the notice, but they don't get to see what they're actually doing. Essentially, it's a boundary line adjustment in a way, with lot 33, the Martins and the owners to the north. Since it's within a major subdivision, it's an amended plat process. The reason that they're doing this is that drainage kind of flows through the middle of the property of that long skinny rectangular piece. They're wanting to move the eastern lands over to the north. It'll just benefit not having land on the other side of the drainage. Both landowners will benefit from it. What I've also been informed with planning and zoning is that the zoning will change for this parcel from RR2 to I believe it was R20, GR20, sorry. So there shouldn't be any worry of further subdivision of that lot. I believe even on the note, there is a note on the final plat that there won't be any other any other future subdivision of this lot 133. That might help some of the confusion. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
On my property.
Could you state your name, please? And
Valerie Harvey,
okay.
and I'm just not sure exactly. Are you planning on putting a subdivision up in there? Okay, all the people the homes are 5 acre lots,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Well, what about, is that what you're planning on doing? I mean, I don't understand.
I'm going to ask you to come up for just a second and look at this map if you want to clarify. The map's on the computer and it's much easier to see what they're doing. You have an existing lot that goes like this right now in the light blue.
Okay.
Okay, what they are doing is changing that lot to take this part and put it over here. So that changes the lot to just look like this instead of look like this. So this drainage doesn't cut the lot in half. So it's just changing properties and reconfiguring this lot to look like this.
Okay,
Is how
so
it
are the
changes.
people that own the property behind my house, are they selling the property too? Or are they keeping, I mean, I don't understand.
I have no idea where you live.
He did. Bruce Harrison, right?
So,
I live off Mustang, the
okay,
very end of Mustang Lane.
all right, so you're up here. The very end of Mustang would be right
Yeah,
here. So we're
okay,
just
so-
swapping the part that was in the subdivision to over here.
It was, okay, so where is that exactly?
It's right there at the end of Mustang.
At the very end of Mustang.
Right.
So you're say that one more time.
We're swapping this piece right here to move up to here. So their new configuration goes over here. They won't own this land over here. This goes back to this landowner.
So you're gonna open it, is that, I don't understand what the purpose of this is then.
I think it's to get the drain out of the middle of their lot. So their lot is more usable. See this drain that comes down through here?
Yeah,
Okay. That causes them landowner issues. So if you can put all the land on this side of the drain, you have more usable land for this landowner, and this can go back up here. Okay, okay. Any other public comments or questions? Any other public comments or questions?
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
Second. Or
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve the amended plat of Spring Valley, including all staff recommendations.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Office for the partial vacation and amended plat of Spring Valley Lot 33. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Well-oiled machine. Well-oiled machine.
Skin in your teeth. Thank you, Corey.
Okay. What? Okay, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to keep moving forward. We have another public hearing that starts right now. This would be Kim Dillon, Planning Office, Salmo Truda, major preliminary plat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the applicant for this project is Nicholas Grigas. This property is in the GR5 zoning district. The planning area is the lower South Fork. We did receive the preliminary plat application in August of this year. Then we received a revised preliminary plat end of September, and you see that in figure 1. The requested action is to vacate and re-subdivide lot 20A of the amended plat of 4-star subdivision, lot 20, into 2 just over 5-acre lots. Each will be for residential use. History: 4-star subdivision was approved in 1977. Madam Chair, as you remember, commissioners in this year, August 5th of this year, approved the partial vacation and the amended plat of this lot 20 in the 4-star subdivision. That action vacated lot 20, which is 5.33 acres, and reconfigured lot 20 to create lot 20A, which was 10.12 acres. That was a lot line adjustment, increasing that lot property line to the north, and included some unplatted property in it to make this larger lot, which obviously the applicant now is asking to divide. And as shown in figure 2, the proposed subdivision is located approximately 4 miles southwest of Cody. It's at the end of Moonlight Drive. In terms of neighboring land use, in figure 3, it shows that neighboring land uses are primarily residential and agricultural. There are some, again, ag lands to the east and residential uses south and west, and the property to the north is currently vacant land. And you can see a good picture of that, Madam Chair, in figure 3. Site characteristics: each proposed lot is currently developed. Each does have a residence and also accessory structures with those residences. And the topography is fairly flat, does have a gentle slope. You can see that in figure 4. This property is not within a mile of any municipality, so that review is not required. Notices: again, this is a public hearing, and we had notices in the Cody Enterprise on November 1st and November 8th, and our office sent out the certified notice to neighbors on November 1st. Staff report was shared with all of you and sent to the applicant or the applicant's representative prior to today. Planning and Zoning reviewed the preliminary plat on October 19th. They recommended approval. We have a list of the 4 conditions that they recommend. This is on the top of page 6 of our staff report. I'll just mention number 3. So that was evidence of written evidence of approval of a water distribution plan from the state engineer's office in Cody Canal. That condition has been partially met. Cody Canal has approved the plan, but currently we've not heard back whether or not the state has approved the plan. So that is one thing that's still outstanding to our knowledge. Agency referrals: Rocky Mountain Power said they have the capacity to serve. And currently they do provide service to each proposed lots at the end of Moonlight Drive. Postal Service said they will be able to provide mail service. Fire District number 2 responded. They indicated they could respond to an emergency, provided a list of the equipment that they would use. Park County 6 School District said that they will provide transportation should that be necessary for students. TCT stated they may have availability and capacity to provide wireless internet and phone service. Cody Canal, again, I already mentioned that they have approved the distribution plan. We did have a letter from them and then another letter from them, one in June, one in October. First letter talked about a main canal and an easement. Second letter basically saying they approved the water distribution plan, waiting to hear back from the state. Northwest Rural Water responded. They said they currently have capacity to provide additional service for the one lot that was not served by Northwest Rural Water. Then we had a response from them. Northwest Rural Water said that the applicant would have to petition them to bring part of this property, is my understanding, into their jurisdictional area. And then we got a response back that has happened. Their boundaries have been modified, and there was an additional tap that was installed. So it appears now both properties have Northwest Rural Water. Weed and Pest initial inspection found the presence of noxious weeds. Mary requires a plan, and that has been approved. We did get a response from the Cody Conservation District. Of course, this is a big paragraph at the bottom of page 7 in our staff report. In the middle of this, it talks about some properties for dwellings with and without basements received a very limited rating. And then towards the bottom of that paragraph, I highlighted that the lots received a somewhat limited rating and very limited rating for septic tank absorption fields. So it sounds like there's some concerns regarding the overall soils in this area. However, again, Madam Chair, these properties are currently developed and they both currently already have existing septics. So to our knowledge, there really won't be any development. There could be, but I don't think anything is imminent. Park County Treasurer said that property taxes are paid in full. Again, we got a response from DEQ giving us contact should something need to be permitted. Game and Fish responded. They have wildlife concerns with the increase in proposed subdivisions. They said that specifically this subdivision alone will not greatly reduce deer populations, but they do, I guess they are concerned about adverse effects, particularly on mule deer populations. Black Hills Energy said they have the capacity to serve the proposed subdivisions. Oh, I will mention, Madam Chair, that even though Black Hills Energy can provide service, and of course, technically this is a major, I believe the end of that gas line is more than 400 feet away. And so gas cannot be extended. The applicant does not want to extend gas, and we do not require it because of the distance away. It's kind of short answer. Wyoming DEQ responded, James Bruff, and basically he said because both lots have rural water and both lots have a septic, DEQ does not need to review either of those. Public Works responded. They said they're satisfied with the existing access and use of the road and private access. And then I submitted the letter to Joy, our planning director. I forget what the perk rate that or what was in that letter, but the conclusion is that conventional systems are sufficient should the subdivision be approved and development occur. And again, my understanding is that there are septics on both of these proposed lots, although we do not have permits for them, but they are existing. We did receive a public comment back in August from a landowner on Moonlight Drive, concerns about speed of traffic and whether the creation of an additional lot would require more work and maintenance. Madam Chair, again, in regard to Moonlight Drive, really currently there are 2 residences, and so we don't anticipate there to be a huge increase in the amount of traffic. So we did receive a preliminary plat. You had a chance to see that. And there was a revised preliminary plat. For this subdivision, no new subdivision roads are proposed or necessary. They'll both get access from Moonlight Drive. We do have a draft copy of an HOA and additional covenants for this proposed subdivision, addressing, among other things, a shared driveway and irrigation facilities. In terms of ag impacts, the applicant commented that essentially he doesn't believe there'll be a reduction in land available for ag use. Again, because these are already developed, they'll comply with weed and pest. Of course, they'll comply with the irrigation district. He doesn't anticipate there being any new pest or litter problems or pet disturbances. And Madam Chair, this parcel is not located, I should say lot and parcel, is not located in an ag overlay district. Again, Rocky Mountain Power provides service to both these lots. Black Hills Energy has the capacity to serve, but it is a long way away. So natural gas we will not require natural gas to go to either lot. And Northwest Rural Water provides service to both of these lots. And Madam Chair, do you mind if we recommend approval? Can I read our recommended conditions? The applicant shall provide all easements as required by applicable utilities and special districts, irrigation districts, or public agencies providing services. The width of any utility easement shall be sufficient to allow adequate maintenance of the system, but in no case shall such utility easement be less than 20 feet in width. Utility easements must be identified on the final plat. The applicant shall reference the existing covenants for Four Star subdivision as amended, together with their recording information on the final plat. The applicant shall place the following note on the final plat. Any proposed water wells on these subdivision lots shall be permitted by the Wyoming State Engineer's Office prior to installation. Final plat shall contain a notice of the Wyoming Right to Farm and Ranch Act of 91. Applicant shall provide an approved water distribution plan from the State Engineer's Office and Cody Canal Irrigation District to the Planning and Zoning Department prior to final plat review, and the applicant shall otherwise comply with standards in the Park County Development Regulations and the minimum subdivision requirements as set forth in Wyoming Statute 185306. Of course, should this be approved, the next step is final plat with you. And we're happy to answer questions that you might have.
Sure. Yeah, Kim, I'm just curious on the staff recommendations, number 3, when it talks about water wells. Both these lots are supplied by Northwest Rural Water. So why do you have that recommendation?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Tilden, that is a good question. It is I guess there's always a chance for a well, and in my mind, it's just kind of a reminder that people, should they decide they need to have a well, could be for irrigation.
Yeah.
It needs to be approved by the
But I mean, you can't drill a well in the state of Wyoming without a permit from the
state. Exactly. Yeah. We consider this to be just a good reminder, should it ever be necessary.
This is a public hearing. Are there anyone else that would like to comment on this proposal?
I'm Chair Cody Shot with Engineering Associates. That's just a white space club on the plat. For the next. No, happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Any questions from the board?
Not really a question, but a comment in regard to Commissioner Tilden. I like the idea of it, but when you put a condition that says shall, it means we're going to police for the state. That's all. I see where he's going for, and I understand why we put it on there as a reminder. But when it says the applicant shall, and you put it on the plat, that means we approved it. It means that we're responsible. And I like the reminder. I just think the wording needs to be slightly different so that it takes liability off the county.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something to follow up. Okay. Any further public comment?
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
The moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Pleasure of the board.
All right.
Move to approve conditions as recommended.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the Samuel Truda major preliminary plat as presented with conditions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure all morning.
Thanks for your time, Cody.
Yeah.
Hey, cans too. Could it say should instead of shall? I'm just,
Yeah.
Or recommended
Or
that.
maybe even just the state engineer's office.
Required.
Yeah, state statute requires.
I mean, we're so damn worried anymore about the legalities and lawyers and stuff. We're hanging ourselves out here in some cases.
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do that.
It's right.
Don't ask those kind of questions. I have no idea. Well, that's why Friday is Native American Heritage.
All native.
See? There's some kind of answer for everything.
And if you're not a native, then
Maybe you don't get it
you
off. I don't
don't
know.
get it off. I am a native, like we're here.
Not that kind of. See this one?
I say we have to update it, but it's under, it's also our
Yeah,
discretion.
Our discretion. No, I understand, but I will talk to him about that tonight. It does clearly say 501(c)(3). A rental form, so. Okay, it is 10:45. So we'll move forward with a public hearing on the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center addition request. Mr. Delavan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the applicant is Mr. Tubbs, who is an architect with the firm that was hired to create this project. This property is in the GRP zoning district. The planning area is coded by rule. We did receive an application from the architects, including drawings and maps and a list of the activities and description of the use, what it will be used for. And also we received a signature on the application from Aura Newland, who is the executive director, signing for the property owner. The requested action is approval of the special use permit with site plan review. It'll be in addition to Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation Interpretive Center. There'll essentially be two new structures. The Monenta System Simpson Institute and the Ladonna Zoll Research Lab. Both of these will be single story. We did receive site plans and floor plans and elevations that we shared with you. Also a statement regarding any compatibility concerns and impacts. The Institute will be on the southwest side of the existing center. It'll be in approximately 5,120 square feet. And the lab will be on the northeast side of the center. And my understanding is there'll be two separate additions for that lab. One will add 1,800 square feet. One will add 2,400 square feet of floor area. And the lab will be a space primarily for researchers. So we have classified this as major community use. Basically because more than 5,000 square feet will be created and more than 1 acre of land will be developed. Ownership is the Heart Mountain Wyoming Foundation. History, this interpretive learning center was first approved in 2008. And according to the application, or it might have been in the staff plan, the facility was talked about as being approximately 11,000 square feet. My understanding is the current center has a floor area of approximately 6,000 square feet. So amendments to approved special use permits, minor changes can be approved by the planning director. Otherwise, an SUP may be varied only upon approval of the board of public hearing. And if the amendment requires site plan review, which this one does, the request shall proceed as a new application. So our conclusion is that this does proceed as a new application. Again, it's major community use and it does require site plan review. I mentioned it is in the GRP zoning district and major community uses are allowed in that district providing SUP is approved. Location is shown in figure 1. It's located northeast of the intersection of Road 19 and Highway 14A. And it's approximately 2 miles southwest of the intersection of 14A and Highway 294. In terms of the topography, you can see in figure 2, really there's little change in elevation. Crop production occurs on much of the property immediately around this parcel. And some of this parcel that's not dedicated to the center is also dedicated to crop production. There is a driveway that accesses the proposed use. Neighboring land uses shown in figure 3, primarily agriculture, some exempt and residential properties nearby. There is a BOR property, managed property just to the west. terms of municipal review, this property is not within a mile of any municipality. That review is not required. Legal notices were in the Powell Tribune on November 1st and 8th. Written notice to neighbors went out on November 1st. The staff report was sent to the applicant all of you prior to today. Property taxes are paid current according to the treasurer. DEQ sent an email with a list of agencies we could notify if we need to. Bighorn Basin Fire Inspector said that this project had already started their review process with them. To my knowledge, it's not been complete yet. Park County Fire District 1 said they have the ability to provide fire protection. Game and Fish stated they held no wildlife comments. Garland Light and Power stated that service to this location will need to be upgraded. They do have electricity from Garland Light and Power. Heart Mountain Irrigation District, they responded. They talked about some comments regarding drainage facilities. Our understanding is this addition will not impact any drainage facilities or irrigation infrastructure. Weed and Pest stated that a long-term noxious weed management plan is required, and that plan has been submitted. Public Works responded that access is from Road 19, and they're satisfied with the details regarding drainage and erosion control. DEQ responded that the center's anticipated water usage is below 2,000 gallons a day. Therefore, the use will not be classified as a UIC. And Mr. Bruff stated he has not approved a permit to construct. Madam Chair, maybe this is a good time to talk about septic. I know when you were reading the staff report, we had talked about that we took the occupancy of the center, multiplied that mostly by 4 gallons per person per day, got a potential septic usage greater than 2,000 gallons a day. DEQ said, no, that's not what we find. So it appears like the water usage is below 2,000 gallons a day and much below 2,000 gallons a day. We have information now where DEQ believes that the maximum, or I should say a average attendance that they're using for septic is about 60 people. And you multiply that, say, by 4 gallons a day, which is what a church or a movie theater would use. Okay. Septic, what I'm trying to say is septic appears to be much below 2,000 gallons a day. The center already has an existing system. My understanding is DEQ is satisfied with that. And our conclusion is we're satisfied with their existing septic. Okay. I'll try to skip that part when I get to it. Okay. DEQ also authorized the center to relocate their water well, so they do have a permit for that. And my understanding that relocation was required because their addition was going to be over where their existing water is located. You also remember in the staff report, we commented they had a well quality sample done many years ago. I think there were some coliform possibly that was found. Okay. Regardless, the center is planning on a new water well.
Okay.
And DEQ has permitted that. Black Hills Energy stated, a conversation with Black Hills Energy confirmed that natural gas is available and there will be upgrades to a meter that will be performed during construction. We've not received any public comments. Planning and Zoning reviewed this in October of this year. They recommended approval. Some of their conditions I have highlighted. Number 2 is evidence that Bighorn Basin Fire Inspector has completed a fire safety inspection and review and approval. That condition, to my knowledge, has not been met. Number 3 was comments and recommendations from DEQ regarding a UIC program. That condition is no longer required. Number 4 was comments and recommendations from DEQ regarding domestic water requirements. That condition has been met. They've essentially looked at that. They've approved a new well location. Number 5 was an approved long-term noxious weed control plan. That condition has been met. Number 6 was a response from Black Hills Energy. That condition has been met. And a response from Public Works prior to your review. That condition has been met. In terms of compatibility and impacts, applicant stated how compatibility will be achieved. They said this proposed addition will match the current design and style. There will be no significant impacts on services and infrastructure. However, the applicant did expect there to be a higher level of visitation. They talked about existing parking and driveways can accommodate more people. They said water consumption, sewage, traffic will increase to some degree. I'll just mention days and hours of operation. They're open in the wintertime 4 days a week. In the summertime, they're open every day. We have their hours in our staff report. Their current staffing is 13, the mixture of full-time and part-time. They anticipate after the addition having 20 people. We mentioned top of page 9, that the total occupancy when this addition is complete, should it be approved, will be 892. Then at top of page 9, we have attendance. It's been running 16,000, 15,000, up to 17,000. In 2020, it was short, I imagine because of COVID. And this year, the information they gave us stopped in August. So we don't have any visitation from August to now. This use will not be within 20 feet of a county road right away. There's no covenants proposed or existing. We have a paragraph, bottom of page 9, where we talk about outdoor lighting. The center uses light poles, which my understanding will all be replaced. They have some lighting on exterior walls, and they have lighting bollards along at least one sidewalk. However, our conclusion is there should be little to no light trespass onto neighboring properties, given the location of lighting, and I believe it's all going to be directed downward and shielded. This property has no known nonconformities. No nuisances have been reported. They did provide a geotechnical report, and because of that, we concluded a soils report would not be required. Access is from County Road 19. Already talked about domestic water. I already talked about domestic sewer. Again, irrigation district, we don't anticipate any of their infrastructure being impacted. Parking, the size of this use requires, we calculate at least 50 parking spaces. Currently, they have 34 standard spaces, 2 ADA compliant spaces. However, they also have a gravel lot next to their paid parking area that appears to be about the same size. Our conclusion is parking appears to be adequate to serve the use. No new signs are proposed. Solid waste will be disposed of by private companies. This does require site plan review, again, because of the size. Again, a new water well is proposed, has been permitted by DEQ. We don't anticipate there being any hazardous substances stored, handled, or disposed of on the site. Again, the Bighorn Basin Fire Inspector has been notified and to our knowledge has not approved any fire-related safety measures. This use is not expected to impact any lakes, reservoirs, or streams. It's not expected to impact any federal wetlands. Erosion and control plan is required, and Public Works did approve what the erosion and control plan they saw. We don't anticipate any impacts to air quality. This development is in an ag overlay district. Of course, that gives you the opportunities to suggest or require changes either to limit this use's effect on ag or ag's effect on this use. Madam Chair, we have some findings, and if you don't mind, we have a fairly short list of conditions. We're recommending approval, and we have these conditions we're recommending. One is Park County noise lighting and other nuisance regulations shall apply. Number 2 is the applicant shall provide evidence that the Bighorn Basin Fire Inspector has completed a fire safety inspection and approves of the use of the facility prior to commencing the use of the expanded facility. The number 3 was the applicant shall obtain a permit to construct a small wastewater system from the appropriate permitting agency. Madam Chair, our belief is that condition is no longer required. We recommend you striking number 3.
Okay.
Again, the applicant would like to use their existing septic, and we feel it's adequately sized, and I believe DEQ does also. Number 4 is the applicant shall provide current well water sample results from the new on-site well to our department to determine if water treatment is necessary prior to commencing the use of the expanded facility. And number 5, applicants shall otherwise comply with standards in Park County Development Standards and Regulations. And Madam Chair, I think that number 4 regarding the water sample was just because years ago, the center in their current well had an issue with either coliform or E. coli.
Okay.
That's where that condition arises from. We're happy to answer questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board at this time? Okay, this is a public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from the public? And if so, please state your name. Ask one more time, any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none.
Madam Chair, I move to close public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? None, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the Hard Mountain Interpretive Center SUP with the current staff recommendations. Second.
Striking number 3.
Yeah, the current.
Current as said, but not written.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
I did.
Lee.
Number 100.
And resolution 2022-100.
All right, thank you, Colleen. Thank you, commissioners.
But with that, we are going to jump right into another public hearing. Barella minor subdivision, right?
Exactly.
Minor subdivision sketch plan.
Yes. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So the applicant for this is Mr. Barella. This property is in GRP. The planning area is Cody Powell Rule. We did receive an application on September 23rd of this year, and we did receive then a revised sketch plan on September 30th. And you see that in figures 1 and 2. The applicant will request approval of a 3-lot subdivision. One lot will be 1.51 acres, one lot will be 3.3 acres, and one lot will be 1.93 acres, all for agricultural and residential use. We did classify this as a minor because it is the creation of 3 lots. As I mentioned, this is in the GRP zoning district. The lot sizes as proposed are consistent with that district. And you see again in figures 1 and 2, you see the 2 pages of the sketch plan. And in figure 3, we have the location, and this proposed subdivision is approximately 4 miles west-southwest of Powell, 1 mile north of Highway 14A. It's on the west side of County Road 14. It has an address of 1002 Road 14 Powell. In figure 4, we show a topo map, and proposed lots 1 and 3 are currently vacant. Lot 2 does have development. It does have buildings on it. And the property is relatively flat. Figure 5, we show neighboring land use, combination of agricultural and rural. We did notice of intent to subdivide. The first notice was published on September 27th and October 4th of this year. There were some incorrect statements in that, so we asked the applicant to publish a new notice of intent to subdivide, or corrected notice. That occurred on October 4th and October 11th. Public hearing notices were in the Powell Tribune. That occurred on November 1st and 8th. November 1st was when the certified notice was mailed out. We shared the staff report with you and the applicant prior to today. Agency referrals. We notify, of course, certain agencies for subdivisions, and we notify additional ones we think might have an interest. Black Hills Energy was notified, they responded. They provided an estimate that would be required to stub proposed lot 1 and lot 3. And they said lot 1 will come from an existing main on the north side of lane 10. And lot 2, and I'm sorry, I think that should be lot 3, I think. The stub for gas to lot 3 will come from a main on the east side of Road 14.
Okay.
And Black Hills Energy confirmed they have natural gas service going to proposed lot 2. Fire District 1 said they can provide fire protection. Conservation District responded with a cover letter and a soils report. They identified only one soil on the property. And then they did share with us classes and limitations for that soil. Park County School District 1 responded they can provide bus service. Shoshone Irrigation approved and signed a water distribution plan. They did mention that a buried tile drain does exist on a portion of lots 1 and lots 2. Garden Electric Power, they responded. They currently serve the residents on proposed lot 2. Madam Chair, this is the top of page 8 in our staff report. I won't read all the suggestions that they have for getting service to lots 1 and lots 3, but they indicated they can provide power to those lots. And again, they do provide electricity to lot 2. Weed and Pest responded, initial inspection, found noxious weeds. Mary requires a weed plan that has been approved. Postal Service said they can provide mail service. TCT responded, they have service in the area. They may be able to provide internet and phone service. DQ again responded with agency contacts should we need them. Park County Treasurer said that property taxes are current. Game and Fish said they have no major concerns with the subdivision, continue to be concerned with the number of proposed subdivisions. Public Works responded. They completed an engineering review. They talked about legal access, lots 1 and 3 from Road 14 and Lane 10. And they said proposed lot 2 has 2 permitted and approved accesses currently. Again, they reiterated that the address of lot 2 is 1002 Road 14. And Public Works does not have any concerns with drainage or erosion control. We've not received any public comments. We did receive the sketch plan. Of course, we went through that review. There was a pre-app meeting with the applicant in July of this year. The fee has been paid. We do have a title report. There are no new roads or shared driveways proposed for this subdivision. Solid waste disposal service will come from private companies. Again, Garden Electric Power will be the electricity provider. Black Hills Energy will be the natural gas provider. We know of no hazards on the property. A subsurface evaluation was done by the applicant on lots 1 and 3 in August. A perk test that was collected first showed on lot 1, a perk of 40 minutes per inch, on lot 3, 120 minutes per inch. The applicant conducted new perk tests. Those were done in October. On lot 1, the perk was found to be 30, and the perk on lot 3 was found to be 60. So on lot 3, still possibility of a still high perk. Excavation cuts remain on both lots in August, and groundwater was discovered. Lot 1, it was found at 8.5 feet down. On lot 3, it was discovered at 8 feet 4 inches. However, based upon that, adequate separation distance exists regarding high groundwater.
Sorry.
And my conclusion is conventional small wastewater systems are likely sufficient should those ever be needed. Domestic water requirements. There is a water well sample that was taken from Mr. Burrell's property, which is proposed lot 2. That was collected in August. bacteria, total coliform was detected. The applicant treated as well, resampled the water. Then with that sample, there was no bacteria that was found. Lead or arsenic also were not detected. Nitrogen was detected at 4.46 parts per million, which is below the cutoff of 10 parts per million. TDS was determined to be 621 parts per million. Anything over 500 is objectionable. However, TDS is a secondary standard. Doesn't provide or doesn't pose any serious health risks, can make the water cloudy or taste objectionable, may have some effects on people drinking it. Ag impacts. The majority of this property is undeveloped irrigated cropland. Of course, the applicant will be required to comply with weed and pest. The applicant really is not proposing any changes expected to impact neighboring ag activities, in our opinion. And we don't think further development will introduce any significant weed, pest, or litter problems or domestic pet problems. This property is not in an ag overlay district. Already talked about Shoshone Irrigation District. They have approved a water distribution plan. Since this is a minor, our conclusion is no state review is required. Madam Chair, I should mention this. I've already talked about electricity and natural gas. Given that these things are on really the opposite side of the road, and our understanding, I guess the best way to put it is these currently are main lines. They're really not domestic lines. And both of these utility providers say that they can cross the road in order to provide utilities. Our conclusion is that the applicant will need to have a subdivision improvement agreement. Just so you know that. I know we have it written here. I just wanted to mention that. Okay. That we will require that. This property is not in any overlay district. Planning and zoning reviewed the sketch plan on October 19th. They recommended approval. They have some conditions. I just highlighted one, and that's 4. And again, that's just saying that an SIA will be required. They recommend it being required. We are going to require it. Madam Chair, we have findings that you had a chance to read. We do have a number of conditions. Do you mind if I read them? Okay, thank you. Number 1 is the applicant shall provide all easements as requested by applicable utilities and special districts, irrigation districts, or public agencies providing services. The width of any utility easement shall be sufficient to allow adequate maintenance of the system, but in no case shall such utility easement be less than 20 feet in width. Easements must be identified on the final plat. The applicant shall show the location of a buried irrigation tile drain on the final plat. The applicant shall place a condition on the final plat that any access approach that is intended to serve lots of the subdivision shall meet Park County Road and Bridge standards and will require a right-of-way permit from Park County Public Works Department. Following board approval of the sketch plan and prior to the board's review of the final plat, the applicant shall submit an appropriate subdivision improvements agreement addressing all applicable required improvements. Our belief is it's possibly limited only to utilities, electricity, and gas for review by staff and approval by the county attorney and the board. The applicant, number 5, the applicant shall place the following note on the final plat. Any proposed water wells on these subdivision lots shall be permitted by the Wyoming State Engineer's Office prior to installation. Number 6, the final plat shall contain a notice of the Wyoming Right to Farm and Ranch Act of 91. And number 7, the applicant shall otherwise comply with standards in the Park County development regulations and the minimum subdivision requirements as set forth in Wyoming Statute 185306. And Madam Chair, we're happy to answer questions if you have any.
Questions from the board at this time?
Madam Chair, Kim, in relation to lot 1, you mentioned that wastewater could, it's your assumption that a standard wastewater system can be used. Have you considered all the easements within that lot 1 taking out the irrigation district easement, utility easements, the tile drain for in setbacks in when considering a wastewater system for a room and also including a well. You know the rules better than I do. It looks pretty dang tight to me.
Yes, yeah, Commissioner Teal, Madam Chair, you're right. I really did not look at those easements in regard to those setbacks, but you're right. It possibly would be tight to fit in a conventional septic system.
Because there's a 70-foot irrigation easement that they couldn't build on. You throw a well in there, which is minimum 100-foot setback. And then with the tile drain through the middle of it, I don't see how you can fit a well and a septic and a building in that lot.
Yeah, it would certainly appear to be tight. Yeah, and Madam Chair and Commissioner Teal, I know you know this, in regard to those easements, of course, that, and in terms of the setbacks regarding a drain field or a septic tank, they don't have to be those many feet away from the easement, but certainly they need to be outside of the easement. Yeah, right. I knew you were probably thinking of that. Yeah.
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, the notice intent to subdivide, there's an error in that. What is the process in that? Does it come from you guys first or approval by the applicant, or how does that work?
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner Mangold, so that notice of intent is the applicant or their representative's responsibility. And they're required with the sketch plan submission, they're required to give us a copy of that. And then I believe at that time that occurred and we noticed either the number of lots or maybe the size of lots, something was incorrect. And then we asked the applicant to do a new or revised notice of intent.
So it would be better to wait till you guys approve the ad or at least give them the thumbs up on it?
Well, typically when we have pre-app meetings with applicants, we'll tell them, generally speaking, we tell them what is in that notice of intent to subdivide. And I think there's only 4 things. It has to be the name of the developer, has to be an approximate location, it has to be the number and size of lots, and it has to be the intended use.
Okay.
But we typically mention that in the pre-app. But again, it's the developer's responsibility to put that in the newspaper.
Any other questions at this time from the commissioners? This is a public hearing, so I'd ask if there's any public comment, and if so, please state your name. Any public comment?
Move to close public hearing, Madam Chair.
Second.
Then moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any further discussion? None, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. It's the pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, I'm concerned that, this is a sketch plan. It can go, if we deny it, they have the opportunity to redo and come back with answering any questions. Is that correct? How does that process work?
I guess in continuation of that question, would they have to go back through P&Z?
Right, for PNC, that I
Yeah,
do
if
not know.
you deny, share an application, then they cannot come back within a year. They have to wait a year to reapply. Now, what you may choose to do instead is to offer them the opportunity to reevaluate their design to ensure that it could meet our requirements, which would mean you could approve with condition, or you could wait to approve until they bring forth information that would make you feel more comfortable with approval. But if you flat out deny it, you would have to wait a whole year to reapply.
Madam Chair, if I could, my concern is if you look at the plat, it's in lot 1 is we pretty much already know that we can't fit a well and a septic on anything less than 1 acre. Right, basically. The net of, in looking at the plat of lot 1 is 1.16 acres. That includes the existing easement of the irrigation district. So you take 70 foot out of a 120-foot area,
Mhm.
you're well under an acre of usable land. So I'm concerned that this, if we approve this sketch plan as platted, this lot will not be buildable under the standard uses.
Madam Chair, a recommendation. It may be that you would have them produce evidence that they have a site available on the property, the proposed lot, where they could meet the septic standards for a new and a replacement system, because they have to prove that they have room for a replacement system. So that could be a condition, that you would have them prove to show evidence that there is a buildable site where they could meet those requirements.
Before, Madam Chair, before it comes to final plat.
Yes.
Exactly, understood. If I name one other, I know that in your presentation, there was no public comment. I did receive a phone call from a neighbor, not concerning my issue on this, but more on the wells in the area. This specific area, as you may remember, where there's been concerns in other subdivisions of wells questionable, and the addition of new wells in the area affecting other wells in the area. I wish we had more science behind this issue, but common sense, we all know that we're in a desert, and the wells that were used in this area are surface water from irrigation. There's really no question about that. And with the addition of sprinkler pivot systems and irrigation, and the efficiency of farmers using in the area is reducing that table. Whether it is more wells in the area or the lack of irrigation replenishing what, I guess for layman's terms, the aquifer. That was a major concern from the landowner that I told him that I would definitely bring it up. So moving forward, I wish there was municipal water coming in this area, and I know it is possible. It's does not exist. At one time it was, and Dossie was probably there then on Road 14. The idea of bringing a water line up that area there is, but it would be a large expense. Then you wouldn't have the separation issue possible, most likely with the septic system as well. But there is a big concern in the area of more wells pulling out of that reservoir, if you will, underneath, and affecting home sites that have been there. Can't really prove it, but common sense tells me the more we pull out of it, the less water there's going to be. Well, I'll probably die like a second, but Madam Chair, I move to deny sketch plan.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Do I have any other motion?
I'm sure I'd like to move to approve with the condition that the applicant bring forward proof of the ability to meet setbacks and installing wells and septic.
Second.
Yep.
And included with the other
Yes.
conditions.
And include the other conditions. Yes.
Joe, second. Been moved and seconded to approve the sketch plan request with providing proof of ability for services on lot 1.
Yes. Lot one.
Okay. And the other conditions as listed. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, commissioners.
2022-101.
All right, thank you, Colleen.
101. Amazing.
Okay. The next thing on our,
The reasoning behind waiting a whole year.
okay, the next thing on our agenda is discussion of the Leonhardt annexation.
Madam Chair, I apologize for the lateness in bringing this plat to your attention. I was out of the office, as you know, and playing catch up, but I did speak with Todd Stoll, the city planner, as well as Nate Master, who is the surveyor on this particular effort. There's been a question of how to handle this plat, this annexation, because we're leaving behind a piece of a property that is going to be still in the county, and it's going to be under 35 acres. And so the question was, well, should the Lenharts be doing some kind of subdivision permit with the county in executing this partial annexation? So as you can see, they have a piece of property. The part I've highlighted in yellow is the portion that is going to be annexed into the city. Now, the city doesn't really have a requirement to involve you in this action, but because we're leaving behind this piece of land that is smaller than 35 acres, we've sort of asked if it would be okay for us to get some form of acknowledgement from you, at least so that you acknowledge that you're aware that this annexation has occurred, so that you're aware that there is this piece of land being left behind. So this particular plat that's before you, I have some comments and edits that I'm requesting from the city. In particular, they're noting that they're titling these lots Lot 1 and Lot 2. I'm not comfortable with that. It makes it look like it's a 2-lot subdivision, which it is not. And so I've asked them to redefine the annexation parcel by no lot number, just calling it the annexation parcel, and then leaving what's now called Lot 2 a remainder, just left behind. Further, I have asked that they modify the Board of County Commissioners signature block, because at this time it mentions that you are approving the subdivision permit, which you really can't because you didn't go through a subdivision permit process. Instead, we've agreed that the language will read that the Park County Board of Commissioners acknowledges this plat, in the sense that you've reviewed it and acknowledge it, and that's it. You know, not necessarily an approval, because there's no requirement. Even if they put this on here and you didn't sign, they could still record it, because there's no statutory requirement on their part to have your review. But we do feel that it would be wise, and we have consulted with the county attorney's office, whether it would make sense for you to at least have some review of this plat because of what's happening. Now, should there be a subdivision process for this remainder parcel? That's a question that I'm having difficulty answering. I just think it's a unique situation where they're not taking the whole of the property into the city, which is most often what occurs. But in this case, because of the irrigation system that's running through the property and the size of the property, the applicant wishes to keep their portion that they live on and hope to stay on out of the city, because they don't need the city services. They don't need to be in the city. But because of the multifamily development that they want to do on the other piece of the property, which you may be familiar with, that kind of started going through your process, it would really make sense for that to be in the city. So you probably are familiar with the fact that we started down the road of the multifamily use on this property, and then it turned into an annexation discussion. So we do feel that this is a wise decision to handle. It's just we wanted to make sure that the board was aware that there is going to be a parcel resulting from this that's under 35 acres.
Questions from the commission?
Yeah, just one quick question. So are you asking for official action from the board?
Well,
You want our approval to?
The request would be for you to actually sign the Mylar for the plat once it is prepared, just stating that you acknowledge this action. That's all that they're asking.
Okay.
It's not really approval, it's acknowledgement.
I'm sure I'll move that we acknowledge.
I'll second that we acknowledge. Acknowledge.
I think we're just asking Dossie to acknowledge that.
No, there you
He'll
go.
be signing my.
Allow the chair to acknowledge.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, I believe, to sign the plat, understanding our acknowledgement that this is happening. Correct?
Correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay,
All right, we'll bring the Mylar when it's ready.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is a discussion of our existing ARP funds and a discussion of newly proposed ARP funds from the federal government. You all have in front of you what we received and what we have done in the past, and what's been asked for and what's been committed. There's a couple of things on there that are still as proposed, one of which I think can be removed, but I'm not positive on that. That's up to the commission. We still show Public Works with our old existing ARP money, I should say. We had set aside 3 million of that to look at the lagoons situation. And buildings and grounds, we had put 1.5 aside, knowing that the HVAC was coming. When we did that, we had no idea what the HVAC was going to look like costing us, but that's what we set aside. And then we also had that Park County sheriff's organization request that is still sitting on there that we have not taken official action on. So those things still exist in the current ARP funds, which have a few criterias on them, which include must be appropriated to projects by 2024 and expended by 2026. So we're still working on that scenario. And we know that we still have a lot of those bills coming in, whether we rearrange those funds or not. The next step is the offer now, what's been offered to some counties in the state of Wyoming. The federal government used the PILT formula according to the documentation that we received from the federal government and from Wyoming County Commissioners Association. In using that formula, Park County has an awful lot of federal lands, and that is how PILT is. The formula works. So to make a long story short, they are offering us $6 million this year and $6 million next year. And those funds can be used for general projects for the county, supplementing our general fund budget, or how we see fit where we would spend normal county dollars. There is no time limit that we have found on those documents that we've reviewed, and we've reviewed with our county treasurer, with WCCA. We've asked some questions of the federal auditor that was here to go through our first go around funds. These funds do not have to be expended by 2026, but as long as we have these funds in retention, we have to do an annual report of how they're being used and what is still being held. So the obligation on these is a little bit less as far as the reporting process or the time that they have to be used. I did look around at a few things that we discussed and things that we haven't been able to do as a county, at least in the last time that I've been here, and a little bit of input from a couple other elected officials. But we do know that our HVAC system is moving closer to $4.5 to $5 million to replace. And that's this building, the other half of the building, and the Public Works Department. We have the flap extension on the North Fork that is scheduled for 2026 that we had hoped would come through the Billings Bottom, another 2.5 miles. It's not projected to do that with the federal funds, but that's something that we could extend by ourselves with the contractor already being in place. We have the redesign of the Willwood Road, which we've talked about for the last 4 years that I've been here as far as budgeting and not been able to fit that into the budget. We have the situation with the county lagoon system that we've been working with the city to try to solve that problem, which is about a $3 million problem. And that's what it would cost us to basically transfer that over to the city with some infrastructure that has to be built for them to be able to take over. Then the county would be out of the septic lagoon business. The clerk and the treasurer have talked to me about upgrades that they need in their Tyler and computer accounting systems that will bring them up to date, that have not happened in many years, in order to keep them working on current software. We've talked about the county annex still exists on a well in Powell and basically needs to be connected to city services so that we don't have issues with well water, which we do have there at times. That is about a $250,000 to $300,000 situation. Going back to Commissioner Teal's comments in our last subdivision approval, one of the things that I think is important that we take a look at as we work with our land use plan and possibly updated regulations is a hydraulic study for Park County that needs to be updated, that hasn't been updated in many, many, many years. And with the fact that we've been losing, as you say, flood irrigation water, that will play into a part of how Park County can grow. The Road and Bridge Shop has asked for a lot more materials to be able to help on the roads. We also need to look at water system at the Powell Road and Bridge Shop, which is extremely bad. It's a bad well. They've hauled water for drinking and even washing their hands at times. It is that bad. They are talking to Northwest Rural Water to see if there's any possibility to have that happen. However, it's quite a distance and would be fairly costly. Maybe a cistern situation, but that's something we haven't even got into the full discussion of. But those are some of the things that have come up with. And so we've looked at these funds and the commissioners need to decide whether we're going to go ahead and take them. The situation is that we can accept them prior to December 31st. If we do not accept them by then, we do not receive either year. It's out of the picture. There's the program. Yes, sir.
Well, you know, when we first brought this to our attention, I was very skeptical on what strings were attached. And we've done our homework. I mean, they're not saying something couldn't pop up. I hope it really doesn't, but I don't see how we can refuse them. We don't have to have these projects up ahead of in order to receive the additional. And now that's some of what you're talking about right now is whether we accept this additional money from the federal government for the public lands. Anyhow, I think we got to do it. I mean, we'll have to, but somebody's going to get it. We can darn sure use it, and I would very much like to make sure that whatever we use it for does not add burden to the county in the future for costs of maintenance. You know, I want a Powell swimming pool.
Foundation.
That's one of the reasons for the lagoons discussion. Those are going to get more expensive and under more DEQ control all the time. So we would.
Most of these projects that you have, I believe, are not going to have further expense or count.
Madam Chair, one of my concerns was the formula they used was through the built formula, and my concern was that it was going to be in lieu of bill payment. So, but what we looked at, it is not in lieu of bill payment. So using the formula.
It's simply using
the formula they use. So I think the county needs some funds before we, raise property taxes. Let's burn up this money. So
well, and the PILT formula, for those that need to understand that, it's payment in lieu of taxes for the federal and lands that are not taxed by the county. And of course, we have a bunch of it. We get approximately 1.2 million. I'd ask the treasurer's office, but I'm pretty sure that that's what comes in each June 30, July 1, somewhere in there that does that. Well, 1.2 million certainly does not cover what the property taxes would be on the federal lands in Park County if it was actually under property tax formula. So yes, it's a help, but I think the formula is pretty stiff, and therefore they came out with these kinds of funds. So it was a little bit of a surprise. We're one of 4 counties that are looking at this kind of a significant amount of money. Some other counties receive some, but it's at a much lesser level.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment? I know we're talking about replacing and already working towards replacing the HVAC system. I think another thing we need to take into play if you're ever in the clerk's office, the windows, they do all escapes. Our break room and our back room where accounts payable is, it's literally freezing. And so do we need to look at windows? Not all of them, but maybe some
boat.
Steve already does. Shirt and a jacket.
Oh, okay.
Yep, with the heater running.
And the HVAC may help. We don't know yet, but it's an idea.
I mean, you got all that escaping.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I've never been really in favor of federal funds, but as Commissioner Steele pointed out, somebody's going to get them. And this will give us the opportunity to do a lot of projects, many of which have been deferred for a number of years because we just haven't had the money to do them. So I would make a motion that we accept the fund.
I'll second it.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to accept
money.
Except money, except, the proposed, new ARP fund. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay, I know the treasurer is out of town right now. Her staff is here representing their office, and we'll move forward with the paperwork hoops that we need to jump through to make sure that that happens as soon as you either have a conversation with Barb or. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Be interesting. Okay. Got a few minutes.
We talking about the project being removed, the lagoons, is that when we're not getting removed from the list?
No, I know. Yeah, that was a tough one. I wish that would have qualified for the.
And then with Zach and Zane Logan yesterday about trying to convince them to put lagoons in power, and the mayor is definitely against that. So
Yeah.
you have to overcome a veto of some kind.
Right. Well, we only have a couple options with the lagoons, and that's either keep spending a lot of money on them or close them or do this. I know what you're. But the users are kind of important here. This thing on our agenda. Yes, we're waiting on, as soon as Kim comes in.
Madam Chair, if I- on the, since we're actually still on the ARPS discussion, where are we and what timeline are we set with on the lagoons with the city discussion as far as infrastructure needed?
Mr. Edwards is researching that a little bit because we did not receive the funding through the slip board that they'd requested. We're looking at breaking that out now as far as exactly what has to happen, at what kind of a time frame cost wise, and what that would be. So he is working on that to give us a timeline.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the question I got is, with the other funds that we received, I mean, I realize that the ones we just voted to take in, there's no strings attached. Are we going to entertain applications for those funds?
That is not mentioned in the paperwork. It just says the county can use it for general expenditures that we usually use funds for. So if we had someone that came to us requesting funds, I think we would treat it like we would our normal budget. Is my understanding. That, yeah.
Those folks are
I
sitting out there.
think that's probably true.
Why they're sitting out there.
Yeah. We have not seen anything that would deny us the ability to do that or require us to do it either way. So if there is an open door there as far as we can certainly check with the federal auditor. She gave us her information to be able to ask those specific questions, but it does not show up, Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, in what we read, there was nothing that said we could not use this for other projects that we support. Okay, so we can follow through with that a little bit and see what's there. If that's the question.
Did the denial of the grant for the water project, did that stop Cody from going forward with their water project that they had?
They actually had two applications. They had one for ours with the lagoons for that septic part, and they had another one for some water main things, and neither one of them they had over 150 some applicants, and neither one of those projects made it to the top 40 or something that the slip board approved or is still listing. So no, I don't think it had any bearing on the R2 project. Okay. The next thing on our agenda is final plat of CH Hodson, simple subdivision number 298. Mr. Delavan, if you would like to move forward.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a CH Hodson simple subdivision. This is final plat review. Of course, it's not a public hearing. The applicant are the Hodsons. This property is in commercial zoning district. The planning area is Cody local. We did receive a final plat application from the Hodsons that occurred on October 25th, including things like the final plat. Then we received a revised final plat on November 9th. So the applicants request approval of this final plat. It'll be a 2-lot subdivision One lot will be 1.29 acres. One lot will be 5.33 acres. They're designated for residential use. And as I mentioned, they are in commercial zoning and they're in the Cody local planning area. And of course, as you saw from the maps, they're right on the edge of Cody city limits. They're just on the north side here of Cody property, Cody city limits. We classified this as a simple because it's only the creation of 2 lots. This is in the commercial zoning district, and lot sizes proposed are consistent with the C zoning district. I believe the commercial zoning district, I think you can create lots as small as 1/2 acre, if I remember correctly. But anyhow, these conform to that zoning district. You saw the final plat in figure 1. The location of the property you can see in figure 2. Again, it's located just right on the edge of Cody city limits on the north side of town. Has an address of 170 C Street. In terms of municipal review, we did show in figure 3, Cody city limits again are just on the southeast and a portion of the west side. So municipal review is required. The city was notified. The city did respond with several comments. We'll talk about those in a minute. In terms of neighboring land uses, we have a map that's in figure 4. It shows neighboring land uses. So property surrounding this is primarily residential, in part because, again, it's the city of Cody south of this. And east of this, the property, again, is a lot of that city of Cody, but it's zone commercial. In terms of site characteristics, the property has a little change in elevation, currently vacant. There is, however, a small shed and a foundation on the north side of the property, essentially where proposed lot 1 is to be. Notice of intent to subdivide was in the Cody Enterprise on September 20th and September 27th of this year as required. In terms of overlay district, the property is not in an ag overlay district or flood overlay district. It technically, though, is in the Cody Airport overlay district. We did notify the Yellowstone Regional Airport management of this request. They've not responded. I believe somewhere we have in here basically a statement that to the effect that a approval of a subdivision or creation of a subdivision should not impact airport operations. I mean, we're not talking about any structures. So that I think is one comment we may be made. However, we've not received a comment from the airport officials. However, I believe I don't believe we need to receive a response from them because if I remember correctly, something like this in the past where it says development, we need to have a response from them. Technically, a subdivision is not considered to be development. My understanding is we don't need to receive a response from airport officials. Fire district number 2 responded. They said they gave us a list of the equipment they would typically use. Our conclusion is they would be able to provide protection. Rocky Mountain Power responded. They do have the capacity to provide service. School district number 6 responded. They said they would provide service if it's necessary. Cody Canal responded. They received a copy of the water distribution plan in September. That plan has been approved by them. DQ responded with a list again of development activities and who to contact if those need to be permitted. Park County Treasurer stated that property taxes are current. Weed and Pest responded. Mary did an initial inspection, found at least 2 noxious weeds on the property. And she also commented the area has been disturbed. Property owners are mitigating weeds. Mary decided that a long-term noxious weed a weed plan will not be required. However, she does recommend best practices. Game and Fish said they have no concerns with this subdivision. Again, they continue to have concerns with the number of proposed subdivisions. City of Cody responded. Todd Stoll, he shared a website titled National Pipeline Mapping System. It indicated a gas transmission line on the east side of the property going from north to south. And I'll talk about those in a minute. And Mr. Stoll also stated that a wetland determination had been completed on the property. And then page 7 of our staff report towards the top, we have a paragraph, according to the National Wetlands Inventory, a portion of the center of the property is classified as freshwater emergent wetland, characterized by plants growing in basically wet environments. Inventory, to our understanding, was established by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide information regarding those things. We'll talk about that more in a minute, Madam Chair. Cody Conservation District, they responded with a letter. They commented on the soils that were found. They said soil types are favorable for dwellings with or without basements. They also commented on the limitations of the property, including, they mentioned ponding, depth to saturated zones, and shrink swell. Then they also talked about on proposed lot 1 and proposed lot 2, those features, those limitations, those classifications. And we do have a soils report available in our office. Public Works responded with an engineering review. They commented proposed lot 2 is legal access from C Street. Lot 1 is intended to be served by a 30-foot wide access and utility easement from C Street. Maintenance and improvements to C Street is the city of Cody's responsibility. Public Works responded that no subdivision roads are being proposed. Public Works said both lots 1 and 2 should be addressed off of C Street, and they said a drainage and erosion control plan is not necessary. We did receive a response back from Black Hills Energy. They commented that there are 2 natural gas lines on the east side of this property. A 3/4 inch steel distribution main is on the property, and they said an 8-inch transmission line is just on the west side of the property. So those are the gas lines, to our knowledge, that are occurring on or just adjacent to the property. One is obviously small in diameter, the other one is larger. One's a distribution line, one is a transmission line. You had a chance to read that, Madam Chair. The Postal Service responded they'll be able to provide mail delivery. TCT responded they have the availability and capacity to provide wireless internet and phone services to the proposed property. We have had several conversations with Army Corps of Engineers. On the top of page 8, we have a paragraph where we responded with a phone conversation that occurred and an email that occurred. This person, Paige Wolken of Army Corps, confirmed that they have regulatory authority and appropriate, she said, to show identified wetlands on the final plat. And then she gave us basically a paragraph that she would recommend going on the final plat that applies to the wetland. Jenny has had, I know, several conversations with Army Corps, and she'd like to provide more detail on those.
Madam Chair.
The mic.
Just to go through, as Kim mentioned, on September 28th, Todd Stoll first brought to light that the wetlands have been designated on the property. In follow-up, it ended up being recommended as a condition at the planning and zoning hearing that the final plat show the location of any identified wetlands. Then we followed up with the applicant's surveyor, Mr. Fulweiler, going back and forth just because they believe that wetlands do not exist on the property. Okay. So we looked into it more extensively and then started the conversations with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And as Kim stated, she helped us with the language that she thought should be appropriate there. I conveyed this to Mr. Fulweiler, and this was on Thursday, so the 10th, and we were out of the office, of course, on the 11th. So on Monday, he had the opportunity to visit with the Hodsons and discuss it. The Hodsons brought to light that there had actually been a study done on the property, and that the Army Corps of Engineers had submitted a letter. So they brought that in yesterday. And my only concern was that on the letter, it specifically stated an expiration date. And so that didn't make much sense to any of us looking at it, but we thought we had better reach out to the Army Corps. So provided that to our contact at the Army Corps of Engineers and just, ask for clarification. Does this eliminate all of our concerns and any issues going forward with the wetlands on the subdivision? She emailed back and stated the Corps has jurisdiction over wetlands that are technically delineated using U.S. Army Corps of Engineer methods, and that meet the definition of waters of the United States. The information you forwarded was based on a technical delineation and provides an approved jurisdictional determination, AJD, of no wetlands and no waters of the U.S. for the parcel identified in the figure she attached, which was lot 2 of the subdivision, where we have identified the wetlands from the Fish and Wildlife inventory. And then she noted, please note that the AJD has expired. So we have continued to research and have not been able to conclude that, absent a new verification from the Army Corps of Engineer, which is what we have found in our additional research, that apparently it needs to be renewed technically.
And my
me,
understanding,
yeah.
Madam Chair, I don't know all the technical terms, but Jenny and I are talking about evidently wetlands can appear and wetlands can disappear.
Right.
Hence the
It
exploration.
can change, yes. So it just, we feel like we've concluded that staff is not qualified to identify, delineate, or make decisions about wetlands. We need to defer to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer. So given all of that new information that surfaced this morning and late yesterday, we are recommending that the condition that is on the written staff report at this time, condition number 2, that it should be replaced with, or we recommend that it could be replaced with, the applicant shall place the following note on the final plat. According to the current National Wetland Inventory, a wetland has been identified on lot 2. In 2014, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers determined the absence of wetlands on the property following review of a wetland assessment. However, the verification expired on August 1st, 2019. Future development proposed within any area of the subdivision identified as a wetland in the National Wetland Inventory shall comply with the requirements of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Madam Chair, may I continue? And then certainly you'll be able to.
This might be your question.
Yeah, I know you have questions. So that was the Army Corps of Engineers. So under that, we have one more agency. We have Yellowstone Regional Airport. Again, no response has been approved or has been received. However, our conclusion is approval of the subdivision will have no impact on the airport operations. Public comments, we've not received any. Planning and zoning approved this simple subdivision sketch plan on October 19th of this year. That you saw the conditions that they were recommending. I'll just comment on most of these. Number 2 was a note on the final plat. Water wells on these subdivision lots shall be permitted by the Wyoming State Engineer's Office prior to installation. That condition has been met. Of course, this is a final plat, so it's on there. Number 3 was the applicant shall provide a response and approved water distribution plan from Cody Canal Irrigation District. That condition has been met. Number 4 was the applicant shall provide an engineering review from Public Works. That condition has been met. Number 5 was the applicant shall verify whether the natural gas line located along the east property boundary is a transmission line or distribution line. We have condition met, clarified by easement on the final plat and the response from Black Hills Energy. So that condition has been met. Number 6, the final plat will show the location of identified wetlands. Of course, that remains to be seen. Number 7 is the final plat shall contain a notice of the Wyoming Right to Farm and Ranch Act. Plat Review Committee, Madam Chair, that committee met on December 7th. They had some corrections and minor changes. We did receive a revised final plat on November, I left that off, on November 9th. We have staff findings, Madam Chair. We do recommend approval of this final plat. We have conditions. I think Jenny just verbalized number 2, a revised number 2. May I read number 1 and number 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 1 is the applicant shall provide all easements as requested by applicable utilities and special districts, irrigation districts, or public agencies providing services. The width of any utility easement shall be sufficient to allow adequate maintenance of the system, but in no case shall such utility easement be less than 20 feet in width. Easements must be identified on the final plat. And number 3 is the applicant shall otherwise comply with standards in the Park County development regulations and the minimum subdivision requirements as set forth in Wyoming statute 185306. And we're happy to answer questions. Should you have any?
Questions from the commissioners at this time?
I got a lot of comments.
Yeah.
This is not a public hearing.
As you mentioned on the wetland recommended, not, I mean, words mean a lot. And reading her response said should, and it is recommended, so we're not obligated to acknowledge this, correct? As far as the wetland identification.
Answer that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, are you asking if the county is obligated?
Yes,
So
because her response said should and recommended.
yeah, so understand that we are required to address wetlands as part of development, and our very development regulations address the need to uphold federal regulations upon development in a wetland. That's what our rule says. Now, that's under site plan review, SUPs. The subdivision side of things, it's been brought to our attention that there is a wetland on the property. We can't ignore that. It behooves us to put the landowner and future owners on notice that there may be a wetland, which then they would be required to comply with federal regulations for development in that wetland. So we feel it's our position to at least put the landowner on notice. You know, we're not saying that they have to come to us to regulate the wetland. We're telling them where they can go. And it could be that once they get to the Corps of Engineers, the Corps of Engineers is like, oh, this isn't a big deal, you're good. Or they may require something. We don't know. We're not the wetland regulator, but we feel it makes sense to put them on notice.
Commissioner Tilden?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. Number 1, the state of Wyoming and Park County have commented on water of the U.S. numerous times and shown our opposition to it. And basically, it's a matter of interpretation of the Clean Water Act and the definition of waters of the U.S. And it really all depends on who's in power in the White House. That's basically what it amounts to. I know the last time this came out under the Obama administration, they were trying to control the mud puddle in my yard, and we got that beat down. And I see this as coming back, a portion of that, and it's different of an interpretation of the law is all it is. And now a study was done in 2014 and said there's not wetlands. And I understand we potentially have an obligation to identify potential wetlands, but I don't think it's up to us to enforce it. And so with that being said, I'll make the motion that we approve and strike condition number 2 on staff recommendations and only put the applicant shall identify potential wetlands. And let the onus fall on the Army Corps of Engineer and the applicants if they have a problem with the federal government.
Second.
I mean, it really upsets me, it really does. And we fought this for a lot of years.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
As
State your date.
Surveyor for the client. If we put something on the plat, you know,
Leave the rest.
Jerry and Colleen have already spent the money to do a study and nothing's changed since that study has been done. If we put something on a plat, now I as a surveyor, you know, need to put that on a plat. That will
possibly encumber their property for no reason at all. Do you follow my drift there? They've already done a study, determined there is no wetlands, and until something changes, I don't know that I should be obligated to show a possible wetland there that's not there. Because it might encumber their property if they try to do whatever with it. It's on commercial property, which could get kind of spendy.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, I understand the concerns, I understand the frustration. Whether this note is on the plat or not, does not change the federal requirement.
Right,
We
fair
are
enough.
just putting the landowner on notice that there is such a thing. That's, we're trying to help. We're not asking them to even put the delineation of the wetland on the plat. At this point, we're not asking them to draw the wetland on the plat. We just want them to put them on notice that there has been identified wetlands on the property so that they're aware of that. Now, whether there is a wetland or not, Army Corps of Engineers has made very clear that up until that date in 2019, there wasn't, but that determination expired in 2019. So again, we're trying to come to the middle to just let the people know, because even if it's not on the plat, they still fall under that designation.
So, Madam Chair, to clarify, Commissioner Tilden's motion is to just have that as a condition of acknowledgement,
Yeah,
not
and-
necessarily be on the plat.
And basically, the way I worded it was not necessarily identify wetland, but identify potential.
Is it
wetland.
to be on the plat, or is it just to be a condition that you are notified?
It's just a condition that you're notified. Joy doesn't like that. Go ahead.
Well, I'm concerned you're telling them that they have to identify potential wetlands, which is not what we're asking. We're telling them that the National Wetland Inventory has already identified it. And that's it. Like, you're not asking them to go figure it out. But what you just said makes me think that they now have to go identify them. So you may want to reconsider the wording that you're offering. It may be that what you mean is that wetlands have been identified. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically that's where I was getting at. Is at one point in time, these were identified as wetlands. And then in 2014, when the study was done, they said, okay, they're not wetlands anymore. And now, because of the new administration, and everything else, they're saying we have to identify.
I would make a friendly,
Go right
suggest a
ahead.
friendly amendment is approve the final plat with striking condition number 2.
Well, that's where I was going. So
Well,
thank
then
you.
strike it completely. 'Cause,
All right. I will agree with that.
yeah, Director Hill just said that whether we put it on there or don't put it on there, if they're still obligated by it, but I just soon not see it on the plat.
Okay,
If we don't
I
have-
tell you what, I'll withdraw my motion if you.
I'll
You can just
withdraw
take
my
it, you can
second.
just take it as a friendly amendment to your motion.
I'm just gonna say, okay, I'll make a new motion that we approve striking staff condition recommendation number 2.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve. Final plat of Hudson simple subdivision number 298 with conditions 1 and 3.
Madam Chair, just a quick,
Yes, sir.
how do we protect the purchaser from buying that property and all of a sudden they're being pursued for violation of the Clean Water Act? Is there any protection at all? Just a buyer beware thing.
Well, you go through life having to be aware. It's been determined that there's a study says there aren't wetlands. And I stand by the motion that was made by Commissioner Tillman.
I mean, to me, if a piece of property is this small, if there's a wetland out there, you can walk across the property and say, oh, it's wet here.
Quit irrigating.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So we'll have conditions number 1 and 3.
Resolution 2022.
102.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Pauline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Is there any other business to come before the board today? Yes.
Chair Tom Fitzsimmons, Cody Regional Health. If I could approach the board regarding an update on ARP funds.
Okay.
I'd like to bring up our executives, Chief Clinical Officer Keith Ungren and CEO Doug McMillan.
Okay.
It's always fun to say that because the CEO of Walmart is Doug McMillan.
Spelled differently.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. It feels like the tail is wagging the dog today, but I wanted to give an update. Last July 1st of 2021, over a year ago, with my friends at Powell Valley Regional Healthcare, we came in and asked for an allocation of ARP funds, approximately $750,000. $250,000 of that request was for Cody Regional Health EMS, and the other $500,000 was for our friends at Powell Valley Healthcare, and we do appreciate that. I want to give an update. I mentioned at our hearing on July 6th that there is a supply chain problem. We have yet to receive delivery of our ambulance. However, we did get an invoice last week, and we should take delivery in the coming weeks. I do have a copy of the invoice as well as the check from Cody Regional Health in which that ambulance was paid for. And just to understand the process in getting the commission to release those funds or to approve release of those ARP funds back to Cody Regional Health would be asked. And so if I could, I'd like to present this to the clerk.
That'd be fine. I think it'll go through Molly in our office for a signed voucher to go on down to be taken out of the correct account.
Thank you very much for that again. In that time that we required delivery of the ambulance, at roughly 18 months, we've miled out another ambulance. I'm not here to ask for funds for that, but we do have some other projects going on that are good for the county that Doug and Keith are going to speak to. I also indicated that given our changing demographics within Park County, that we should expect a 4.6% growth rate on our demand for the ambulances, and that's actually been exceeded since the last time we met. We're closer to 6%. We expect that to continue to grow. And so with that, I want to introduce Doug and Keith to talk about developments that they've worked on. And again, these are county-wide efforts, happens to be led by Cody Regional Health.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to present to you. As Tom addressed, we are here to share some information with you and then request your consideration to provide a letter of support to us that we can use Cody Regional Health to submit with EMS regionalization grant that we are in the process of completing and sending to the state on Thursday. So the state has allocated with additional ARPA funds, $10 million for EMS regionalization. The governor and their staff appointed myself and Luke Seifert, who's our EMS supervisor, to a task force a couple of years ago to identify some of the critical needs that the state needs to be addressing from a healthcare standpoint. EMS rose to the top during those discussions regarding with the task force that consisted of individuals around the state. The concern regarding stabilization or unstabilization of EMS services in Wyoming rose to the top. So with that, the task force worked diligently to address what the process would look like in awarding some funds to EMS services. They came out with couple months ago, EMS regionalization application. We have been waiting, Cody Regional Health, to complete this application to submit to the state. Our application that we are submitting consists of requests to support our ground EMS services as well as our new flight EMS JV that was just announced a couple of weeks ago that we took to the Cody Regional Health Board, which they approved. Our request is exciting because Cody Regional Health's EMS services are really phenomenal when we look around the country and see the EMS services that are closing, that are unstable, the instability. We've been able to grow and stabilize not only the services in Park County, but throughout the basin. We currently have EMS services in Park County and West Park Hospital District per se that we provide. We also provide EMS services now in South Bighorn County. We took over those EMS services at their request a couple years ago. And then recently, a little over a year ago, we were asked by the Washakie County Commissioners to provide EMS services in Worland. So we've had an established ground regionalization program that we're really excited about and is pretty innovative when we look around the country. With this grant request, we want to expand our ground EMS program. Keith and I just met with the leaders from Powell Valley Healthcare and North Bighorn Hospital last Friday to talk about our EMS regionalization grant. They addressed a strong interest in working with Cody Regional Health and in the future looking to create Bighorn Basin EMS service as they've seen what we've been doing over the past couple of years. They also expressed an interest in working with Cody Regional Health and having us present our flight EMS program to their boards. So with that, our intent is not only focusing on just Cody Regional Health, but for both ground and flight, we feel an opportunity strategically to expand this, to work together throughout the basin. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith Ungren, our Chief Clinical Officer, and Keith can share a little bit of additional.
Thank you. Yeah, so with the flight program, the JV does bring 18 FTEs or 18 full-time positions to the county, or 75% of those would be within our county. It'll be a locally owned and operated service for the county as well, and local medical direction by our EMS director, Dr. Bollinger. So we're very excited about the program. We feel like it'll stabilize even more transport services and emergent needs within our county, and happy to take any questions.
Questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. So you're gonna purchase a helicopter, I presume, what you're talking about. That's the expansion of your air service.
Correct. Yes. Provide an aircraft and staff.
Do you feel you're going into competition with the private suppliers we have?
There is a private service here. There's also St. Vincent's has also been providing that service to this region as well. So with this addition and St. Vincent's being a partner, this will, free up their aircraft more in Montana, but still provide a service locally for residents here.
Yeah, I guess the only problem I have, even though the Cody Regional Health is a tax funded entity, even though it's a very small portion of your revenue stream, using taxpayer dollars and federal funds to go in competition with private enterprise. I have a problem with that.
Yeah. We feel like it's the best thing for patients here with the quality of service that we have provided with our ground service and the quality we've seen from private services, as well as the cost to insurance programs and to residents that live in this county.
And Commissioner Tilden, and that question has come up several times regarding the competition. We don't see it as competition. Again, our goal is to enhance response times to the residents that we're serving throughout the basin and will be serving. Our goal is to reduce costs. I think of all of you, I know we have read articles over the years regarding just the extravagant costs for flights around the country. And again, as we're putting this together, as we've addressed with the Cody Regional Health Board, our flight service, the cost will be 40% less based on the for-profit company cost, and then the quality. Again, as Keith addressed, it'll be hospital-based where the for-profits are not. It will also be overseen by local medical direction by Dr. Bollinger and other local physicians. So again, we don't see it as competition. Again, we hope the local flight operator can continue to do what they're doing, but our goal is to address those three things.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Tim.
My question is similar to this. So to understand this correctly, your addition for this helicopter is not just to be used for transportation, it's for emergency response. And my question, I guess, in part, you haven't seen a nod. So I've heard issues of the current helicopters accessing the backcountry, will yours be able to, you know where I'm going with this, make those same calls?
Yeah.
Regardless of where that flight is?
Our EMS director has reached out to search and rescue here locally and started those conversations with them. But our intent is, yes, to be able to serve the backcountry and make those on-scene flights.
The same as every other, I believe there's two. I've never had to use them.
Yeah.
But Livingston has, be able to make those landings, in areas.
Yeah. Tom, do you want to address that?
Yeah.
Commissioner Teal, the real challenge when it comes to the flight equipment isn't so much the landings on a river bottom, but it's the altitude.
Okay.
The current equipment in summertime weather, summertime heat, depending patient size and fuel load, one of the challenges is higher elevation. And a good example is twice in my career, I've had to respond from here to top of the world, motorcycle wreck, and transport the patient down to the intersection or the rest area where there's a landing zone because the helicopter couldn't pick up a patient at that altitude and take off. And that's the current equipment. The plan that we have to bring in flight equipment in partnership with St. V's is equipment that can actually do a scene flight at the top of the world.
Real quick, Madam Chair, Tom, will your ship have the ability and the crew have the training to do long line extrications and or night flight?
Yes, on the night flight, and I'll let Keith talk about long line.
Long line has been mentioned, but at this point, that's not part of the program. Not to say that it won't be in the future, but there is additional equipment that would need to be considered for that we would have to have further discussion on.
Any other questions at the moment? So you're looking for a letter of support from the commissioners. And exactly what is your request from the state?
Our request from the state is, Keith can get into the details, but it's a 50% match. And so we have our application will be requesting funding assistance to support ground match for staffing, education, training, as well as same with the flights. We're at this point just in the process completing the application. So one thing that we haven't addressed that we need to in the next couple of days is requesting a partial match for the cost of the rotor wing.
Okay. It's the pleasure of the board as far as doing a letter of support.
I move to approve the letter of support. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve a letter of support for Cody Regional.
Just for discussion, I support the letter. My concern is, will your service be able to do everything that our old services? And I know the medical transportation will be better, no question about that. But I don't want to see in relation to Commissioner Tilding, competition against these others. They're providing a specific service for specific rescues that is available right now. And if you take a little bit away from them, are they going to move out? And here we're left with more risk. I mean, can you convince me a little bit more here?
Yeah. So Madam Chair, Commissioner Teal. So yes, this service would be able to provide the same services as the competitor in the region, the private flight service. And if that flight service was to move out, that the service would still be able to provide the same level of services in other counties. That's not our intent again, but based on your question, since there's that one private service here, we could provide that service as well.
And if I could add to that, Commissioner Teal, one of the benefits in this regionalization and also bringing flight in is our bullpen of certified flight paramedics is much larger than the private service has right now. Right now, they're staffed for one piece of equipment. And if somebody should fall sick or is on training, that piece of equipment is down unless they can replace them. I myself am a certified flight paramedic. I have no intention to work full-time on that unit. However, I will seek to have the appropriate training and to be available. So our bullpen is going to be very big. We've got 2 people down in Washakie County and 1 in Basin that is also certified to fly and have been flying. So much bigger staffing.
If I could, convince me why you're not gonna put the private sector out of it.
I can't convince you of that, Commissioner Tilden, but all I'll ask you to do is look at Fremont County and how that private is done down there.
Okay.
They've reached out to us for guidance.
Will I be able to buy an $85 a year membership?
I knew that was coming.
Will I be able to buy an $85 a year membership?
No, our flight program will not be membership based.
Any further discussion? I have a motion on the floor to approve a letter of support for Cody Regional's request. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Uh,
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. If it would help, we have a couple of templates that we can provide to assist you in providing a letter, if that would be of
If
assistance.
you'll get them over to Molly at our office.
Okay.
Take a look at that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And what's the deadline on signatures?
Deadline on signatures is Thursday.
Okay,
Yeah, I apologize for the short notice.
can you send those over this afternoon?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we'll send them over as soon as we get back.
Okay, thank you.
Wish I'd known you were gonna go no, I would have.
I was rushing back and forth, I can tell you.
I knew she would. Well, I almost slid on her too.
Hey,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
move with her.
Second.
I moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in, no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
You want to vote? Okay.
Gotta be back at 1:15.
Yes, and I think we're downstairs, right, Molly?
Yes.
Okay, we're in the EO